Good morning, everyone. My name is Ambassador Eleni Kounalakis, Lieutenant Governor of California. Welcome to the California Science Center in Los Angeles for today's signing ceremony of a new memorandum of cooperation on climate change between Canada and the state of California. On behalf of Governor Gavin Newsom, who we will hear from in just a few moments, I am honored to welcome to California His Excellency Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, and his delegation, including Minister of Environment and Climate Change, Steven Guilbeault. I am also pleased to welcome to our state Canada's Ambassador to the United States, Her Excellency Kristen Hillman, and I'm of course delighted to see our good friends here in California, Consul General in Los Angeles, Xi, and Consul General in San Francisco, Sarkar. Today, California and Canada are elevating our joint commitment to combating climate change, signaling our resolve to work together to advance and lead the way to a more sustainable and technologically advanced future. This should come as no surprise, as Canada and California have already established a proven track record of working together on the existential environmental issues of our time. California's Air Resources Board signed an MOU with Canada's Ministry of Environment and Climate Change in 2019, and 10 years earlier, in 2009, CARB signed agreements with the provinces of Quebec and British Columbia, both of which are also members, along with California, of the Under 2 Coalition. Today, we take our climate change partnership to the next level. As Governor Newsom's representative for International Affairs and Trade Development, I'd be remiss if I did not also mention how grateful we in California are for Canada's strong economic and commercial partnership. Canada is our third largest overall trading partner and has remained our second largest export market since 2006. So on behalf of all of the businesses of California, thank you. And with that, it is now my great pleasure and honor to bring to the stage and introduce the 40th Governor of the great state of California, the Honorable Gavin Newsom. Mr. Governor.
Thank you, Madam Lieutenant Governor, and thank you, all of you, for taking the time to be here. To Ambassador, Consul General, Minister, Mr. Prime Minister, wonderful to have you back in California. I joked last time the Prime Minister was in California. I asked my staff if they were interested in joining. I never knew I had such a big staff. And I'm still, I said it at the time, I said a few of them I'm not even sure were members of my staff. We're still trying to identify them. Of course, this time is no different. So I just want you to know, Mr. Prime Minister, your status has remained in the great state of California, and that's unsurprising, and that's why we're here. We're really here in the spirit of partnership and collaboration, a spirit that defines this moment in the world we're living in. The planet is running a fever. The hots are getting a lot hotter, dries are getting drier. With these atmospheric rivers, the wets are getting a lot wetter. We're now experiencing in California the most remarkable turn of events. Now the remarkably seventh year of a drought in just the last decade alone. You've seen the horrific images all around the world of communities and towns, lifestyles, traditions that have literally been eliminated because of the fire, literally, and fury of Mother Nature. You've seen communities like Grizzly Flats and Greenville, of course, Paradise, California, just leveled because of these existential realities. So we're here sober and mindful of that moment we are all living in and through, and also mindful that we have to disabuse ourselves of a value proposition that's so often situational, meaning in elected office, we're so often consumed by just the immediacy of a moment or two, and this too shall pass. These challenges require more sustainable value set. And so we're here with a mindset around sustainability, embracing not just our proud past, as the Lieutenant Governor said, in terms of the relationships that we formed over the course of many decades, but with hope and expectation that we can develop at another level those relationships going forward. I just want to briefly mention a few things. And it's important for folks, particularly from Canada, to know this. One of the things that I'm very prideful of, and also very mindful of, and I imagine Canadian citizens are mindful of, is democracy in the United States, like democracies around the rest of the world, are threatened. And even with more stability in that frame, folks like me come and go. You're given a moment in time, you're given a term, and oftentimes you're replaced by folks that don't necessarily align with your values or visions. It's important for folks to know, in California it's a little bit different. We're a $3.36 trillion a year economy, the fifth largest economy in the world. I say that not to impress, but to impress upon your point. We punch above our weight, and we carry a lot of weight as it relates to low carbon green growth, as it relates to efforts to change the way we produce and consume energy, regardless of who's in the White House, regardless of what's happening in Washington, D.C. We are a reliable partner. I was telling the Prime Minister just a moment ago that it's just remarkable to be here in a state. I'm privileged of being a governor and walking into former Governor Ronald Reagan's office every day. To be reminded that in California it was a Republican governor by the name of Ronald Reagan that led our efforts in our low carbon green growth by establishing the California Air Resources Board. So we had the ability to establish the relationship formally with Quebec and our cap and trade program that we shared together, which is remarkable, and the formal relationship we were able to establish and advance with British Columbia. It's the reason we are part of a coalition, the MO2 coalition, or MOU under 2 coalition now, with close to 250 national and sub-national signatories, by the way, representing almost half of the global economy. It's because of that relationship to a regulatory environment, not just a political environment, that creates that kind of stability. So we're here as a stable partner in these efforts to advance and accelerate our collective goals and visions. At the end of the day, this is not going to be solved in California, not going to be solved in the United States. It's going to require a sharing of knowledge, export values and opportunities. And I just want to close before I introduce the Prime Minister to say that this memorandum of cooperation, often referred to as a memorandum of understanding, though we don't need to understand the crisis and the meritorious nature of what we're doing, this cooperation just sets out our efforts, particularly on electrification as it relates to biodiversity loss, often forgotten in the climate discussion and debate, strategies and approaches as it relates to some of the remarkable work the Prime Minister has been doing as it relates to recycling and issues around plastics, oceans, our preservation of land and water. It's an exciting framework from my humble perspective, and we're excited to have someone that we believe in, the Prime Minister, representing a country we revere and admire, representing an opportunity that we hope will inspire others of like mind around the rest of the globe. So, Mr. Prime Minister, once again, it's an honor. We're humbled to have you here in California, and it's my pleasure to introduce the man who, by the way, will get California in the G7. That is the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau.
Thank you very much, Governor Gavin. Thank you for not just your kind words, but all your leadership as well. Canada has long had just extraordinary relationships with California, like-minded in so many ways, and we've been able to, under your leadership and predecessors, really deepen and concretize that in ways when, indeed, sometimes we've seen the rest of the United States not be as aligned with Canada on many different things. I want to highlight the team I'm here with, including my Minister of Climate Change and the Environment, Stephen Guilbeault, It's Stephen's birthday today, and he asked me what he wanted for his birthday. I said, how about a memorandum of understanding and agreement with California? He said, that would be awesome, boss. So, also joined by my amazing diplomatic team, our ambassador from the United States, Kirsten Hillman, and our two consul generals to California, both San Francisco and LA in Rana Sarkar and Zaid Sheikh. You know, the governor spoke a little bit about all the ways the world is being challenged right now around climate. We have all in Canada watched horrific images of wildfires, challenging droughts that you've faced here, while at the same time Canada has been going through many of the same things. We had devastating wildfires and heat waves last year that saw the destruction of an entire community in the provincial interior in British Columbia. We saw floods a few months later wipe out major infrastructures and highways. We've seen extreme weather events across the country, and we know that yes, there's a lot we can do in Canada, but Canada alone cannot solve this problem for Canadians. We need to work with everyone to solve the problems of the world. And that's why over the past years we have been leaning forward as much as possible, either at the COP conventions to move forward on global pushes on putting prices on pollution, or more directly recognizing the unbelievable role that subnational governments and municipalities have to play in fighting climate change and bringing citizens along. And we've seen it over the years where a federal government is unwilling, or because of log jams, and in this case Republican interference, unable to actually move forward on the kind of climate leadership that's necessary. State governments and cities step up. And we had that in Canada as well. Before my arrival in power, we had a more conservative government that did not think that climate leadership mattered, and therefore our provinces and our cities stepped up big time in carrying the ball. And now we understand that we just have to work with everyone we possibly can. And California's consistent leadership matters not just for the weight of the Californian economy and population, but it's an example of how to do things, how to look at climate change as a crisis that needs to be responded to, but also a tremendous opportunity that needs to be invested in and drawn on, not just create good green jobs of the future, but good green careers of the future. And that's what we're focused on in Canada, and that's what you're focused on here. So in the future we want to build, Canadians and Californians share so much. Earlier this week, I met with high school students who are studying sustainability, and one of them, Jacinta, asked how she and her friends could be leaders on climate action. My answer to her was, think about what you can do, yes, but mostly think about how you can gather with and mobilize partners to do the same, because we are not going to do it unless you're bringing people along with you. That's exactly what we're doing here today, putting that into action, teaming up. Because today, as we launch a partnership to continue and deepen the work that we've been doing between Canada and California on climate and nature, we're building a team of almost 80 million people. This new partnership will see us work together on everything from protecting nature, driving investment in clean tech, keeping single-use plastic out of our oceans. We're also committed that Canada and California will bring together experts at UN Climate Week to drive progress on wildfires and climate and forest resilience. The bottom line is we're delivering what matters to people: clean air and water, good jobs, and a strong future that leaves no one behind. En 2019, le Canada et la Californie ont lancé un partenariat initial sur les véhicules zéro émission. On a vu tout ce qu'on peut accomplir en travaillant ensemble. Je pense à des entreprises québécoises, notamment comme Lion Électrique, qu'on connaît très bien au Canada, mais qui s'est maintenant rendu en Californie. Et le gouverneur m'en parlait que oui, il connaît très bien Lion Électrique du Québec. On a fait équipe une fois de plus sur des mesures climatiques et protection de la nature. Donc ensemble, on peut lui livrer de l'air et de l'eau propre, de bons emplois et un avenir fort. On climate action, the world is watching. Our vision and commitment to working together matters. So Gavin, thank you for being our partner as we take this historic step. J'ai très hâte de voir tout ce que le Canada et la Californie peuvent accomplir ensemble, because we are, all of us, not just leadership, but citizens, committed to working together for a brighter future for all. Merci beaucoup, mes amis.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prime Minister. I would like to now invite Canada's Minister of Environment and Climate Change, Stephen Gibault, and California's Secretary of Environmental Protection, Jared Blumenfeld, to the stage to sign the Memorandum of Cooperation. Joining them as well are Lauren Sanchez, the Governor's Senior Climate Advisor, and Andrea Sherstone, Canada's Senior Advisor for Environment and Climate Change. And we will proceed with the signing. Thank you.
We're here to happily take any questions. Mr. President.
Hello, Governor. Alex Michelson here from Fox 11. Welcome, Mr. Prime Minister, to California. Good to have you here. Can you talk for a moment, Mr. Prime Minister, about California's unique role in the world? The Governor often refers to our state as a nation state. How do you, as Canada, see California and the value of doing something? And I'm also curious about the two of you and your dynamic. Aesthetically, you look like you could be brothers or at least cousins. But substantively,
I'm the younger brother, right? Yeah, he reminded me he's the younger brother, which is a diplomatic faux pas, but we'll discuss that later.
Substantively, though, there's a lot of similarities between the two of you, and I wonder, going forward, could this be the start of even more types of agreements and other issues as well?
Well, I certainly hope so. I mean, look, it's been a difficult 2 years, the stacking of crisis, overlapping crisis. We were just comparing notes in that respect, so many similarities, but the challenges the Prime Minister faces are extraordinary. And here we are on the other side, we hope, of some of the most acute challenges, particularly over the last couple of years, as relates to the challenges being presented by COVID, reestablishing a relationship that we are proud and pre-existed. And the opportunity to accelerate them, the opportunity to continue to exchange, particularly as it relates to jobs and the economy. And I think it was right the Prime Minister appropriately highlighted that issue in particular. It's an interesting fact, Mr. Prime Minister, today in California, as you know, is a big oil producing state. We have a date with destiny in terms of moving beyond that, and we've established that. But already green jobs reflect 6 to 1 versus fossil fuel jobs. So this notion of economic workforce, the opportunity, I love careers, not just jobs as well. Those are opportunities to advance and accelerate those exchanges. And so I certainly look forward to that.
Canada has always been a country that engages in the world, and whether it's engaging with like-minded countries or like-minded regions or like-minded states like California, we're just there to get things done and work together. And when we find alignment on so many things, as we always have with California, but as we specifically have under Gavin Newsom's administration, we jump on it. The idea of being able to move forward in ways that are collaborative is always better than everyone doing their own thing, not just in ways where we know that climate change is a global phenomenon and has to have global solutions, but on things that might be more individual. We know that working with like-minded partners, and the example of the long-standing agreement between California and Quebec on cap and trade is a great example of the kinds of things that we always need to look more to. Canadians don't stand on ceremony. We want to try and get things done, and being able to have this alignment with not just with the government, but with Californians in general, on so many of the progressive values, diversity, of inclusion, pluralism, as you said last night, which is a word we use a lot in Canada, moving forward on inclusive economic growth, giving real opportunity for everyone to succeed. These are the kinds of things that we know doesn't just build a strong economy, it builds a strong, resilient community and society. And the more we can connect at a time where we do see the world backsliding, complications in our democracies, challenges to science and facts and responsible leadership, having opportunities to elevate and give each other encouragement. It's well known that you're never as popular inside the community you serve as you are outside. And if Californians are happy to see me here, and quite frankly, Canadians are impressed by Governor Newsom, then we get to actually continue to move forward on the things that matter in a way that I hope we continue to do lots more together.
And let me just say, what matters is leadership. And you saw leadership at scale, demonstrable leadership at scale, when the Prime Minister had the courage of his convictions and moved efficiently and effectively on the issue of gun safety. And you contrast that to the lack of leadership, the cowards that continue to dominate the national debate as it relates to gun safety policy. That's another area of collaboration, cooperation. And I really believe, I've long believed this across the spectrum of issues, we say it often, success leaves clues. The successful application of those ideals and those values that the Prime Minister was willing to assert, I believe have impacts not just here in California, but impacts certainly across the country.
In French for Prime Minister Trudeau about the summit. Justin Trudeau, si vous pouvez répondre en français et en anglais, s'il vous plaît. Comment vous allez mesurer les succès du sommet sur le plan des changements climatiques? Quels sont les seuils concrets, précis que vous attendez à la fin de ce sommet?
Je pense que ce qui est clair déjà de mes rencontres que j'ai eues, il y a une grande préoccupation non seulement sur la nécessité d'agir, mais le désir d'agir de tous nos partenaires à travers les Amériques. Les gens reconnaissent qu'il faut avancer dans la lutte contre les changements climatiques, mais il y a des préoccupations légitimes que nos plus petits partenaires, nos partenaires moins développés que des pays comme le Canada et les États-Unis, vont avoir besoin d'aide pour atteindre des responsabilités partagées mondiaux. Et pour moi, si on peut continuer à avancer des mesures concrètes où on va s'entraider pour lutter contre les changements climatiques, ça va être une très bonne chose pour ce sommet. I think one of the things that's been clear already in my many conversations here at the summit with partners is there is almost total agreement that climate change is a priority we need to continue to work hard on, and even all these different governments from across the region are committed to stepping up on climate change, but they're all extremely worried, as we are, quite frankly, about the cost it's associated with fighting climate change. And many of them don't have the kind of fiscal space that Canada or the United States can have to invest, and we need to try and work with international institutions, but also with our private sector and government investing to make sure that we are supporting them in achieving goals that are important, not just for them and their people, but for the entire world as well.
Les pays sont engagés, mais en même temps, les populations font face en ce moment à des préoccupations qui sont très concrètes, très réelles et très immédiates aussi avec l'inflation. La facture d'épicerie à l'essence aussi qui augmente, qui explose. Donc, comment garder les pays engagés quand les populations sont prises avec des pareils problèmes?
Nous, notre solution au Canada, ça a été de s'assurer qu'on est là pour appuyer, pour investir dans les familles qui en ont besoin. On reconnaît que tout le monde fait face à une montée de l'inflation. C'est certainement, il y a énormément de différentes causes, que ce soit la pandémie, que ce soit les chaînes d'approvisionnement, que ce soit la guerre en Ukraine, mais les familles ont besoin de soutien. C'est pour ça que le fait qu'on est en train de couper en deux les coûts associés aux garderies va faire une grosse différence pour bien des familles. Le fait qu'on augmente l'allocation canadienne aux enfants au mois de juillet va faire une grosse différence pour bien des familles. Il y a bien d'autres mesures pour les aînés, pour les travailleurs qu'on est en train de faire. Et tout en s'assurant qu'on continue de retourner plus d'argent de la prise sur la pollution à la grande majorité des familles qui vont pouvoir en bénéficier pour aider avec les coûts qui augmentent. I think we need to understand that inflation is a very, very real thing that families are struggling with, not just at home, but around the world. Many causes to it, whether it's the supply chain disruptions of COVID itself, or recently the illegal war by Russia in Ukraine. But for all those different reasons, regardless of the reasons, we need to be there for our citizens. And what Canada has chosen to do is make sure we are supporting the most vulnerable. For example, by moving towards $10 a day child care right across the country. Families pay thousands upon thousands of dollars more than they should in child care. This year, we're cutting child care fees in half on average across the country. Within a couple of years, it'll be $10 a day. And that reduction in what has been a heavy cost for so many Canadians is going to help with costs of groceries, costs of gas. In terms of the Canada Child Benefit, which is a benefit that gives hundreds of dollars tax-free every month to low and middle income families in a way that really matters, well, it's going to be indexed to inflation as of next year. It'll go up, as of next month of July, it'll go up to match inflation, and that will help families with those rising costs as well. And finally, the price on pollution that we did returns more money to the average families every year than it costs them, and that also, as that price goes up, so does the amount that we turn to families, and that will help as well. But there's more to do, and we'll keep doing it.
Governor Newsom, Prime Minister Trudeau, again, welcome to California. Both of your terms will eventually come to an end. Do you have any fears that with that, the end of this agreement could also be coming? I mean, how do you ensure that this agreement stays past your terms?
Well, he has no term limits, so, you may be talking to him for a few more decades. I recognize I'm the future ex-governor of California, so I understand that. But I think the point I was trying to emphasize earlier around Ronald Reagan was 1967 that he established the framework for the California Air Resources Board. It was remarkable, and it is important to remind folks, in 1970, Republican Richard Nixon, another Californian, interestingly, codified that through the Clean Air Act. Clean Air Act supported by a Republican president in 1970. So we've had a long history where, I think it was Plato who said, if there's any hope for the future, those with lanterns will pass them on to others. That we've had enlightened leaders, including Governor Schwarzenegger, to his credit, as the last Republican governor, that saw to it to advance our efforts to establish the cap and trade program. So I have deep confidence. For no other reason, the Prime Minister and I were saying, we're having this conversation a moment ago, people get it. All you do is open your own eyes. You may not believe in science, but you'll believe your own eyes. There's no Republican or Democratic thermometer. I mean, there's certain facts and realities that even with all due respect, the primetime lineup at Fox News can manipulate. And I think foundationally that's going to allow us to move this agenda forward in powerful and potent ways. And by the way, speaking of power and potency, I was very proud to be with the minister yesterday in Canada where we established a framework around going after super pollutants and methane in particular. And And one of the things, and Mr. Prime Minister goes to the point you were just making and answer the previous question, I'm really proud that California, with a $47.1 billion climate budget, $47.1 billion, I don't know many nations making those kinds of investments, we are investing in global leadership by taking a network and launching a new network of satellites to address global emissions of methane, with investments coming from the state that will be available open source to the world. Every 2 days, a mapping technology that will allow us to see something that cannot be seen, that has no odor, that perhaps is the most significant thing we can do is substantially reduce our greenhouse gases in the short run. So it's just an example of kind of collaboration and cooperation and partnerships that we will seek and we look forward to advancing.
And I fully support everything you just said on that, and I think it's important that yes, governments continue to be consistent in moving forward on these, but you have to remember that in a democracy, there is nothing that prevents a next government from reversing all the good work done by the previous government, except citizens themselves. And the fact that the initiatives that we've taken over the years, over the decades, have had appreciable, measurable, positive impacts in people's lives, in their communities, is the best and really only guarantee that these things continue. And that's why it's so important that people in the media, that scientists, that civil society, and the governments themselves continue to highlight the work being done, the progress being made, even though there's always more to do. Canadians and Americans Californians need to continue to have confidence that we are moving forward and that nobody should ever be empowered to move us back.
David Aiken, Global News. Good morning, Governor. Good morning, Prime Minister. I'm told I'm the last question you're going to get today, and that may be a follow-up for me. My first question is, it's one for you, Prime Minister, and a similar response for you, Governor Newsom. Governor, we travel around with our Prime Minister to a lot of international summits, and we hear Canada and our Prime Minister talking about climate action this, climate action that. But the Prime Minister knows, you may not, that our Environment Commissioner has pretty much condemned his government and every government before it for failing on all our climate action plans. His government owns a bitumen pipeline, just approved new oil development offshore Newfoundland and Labrador. So Prime Minister, how can you be expected to be credible at this summit and others on a climate action file? Governor Newsom, I think you've set in motion plans to cease oil and gas production in this state, 2045 or something like that. What do you think about the fact that your partner here has no plans to end oil and gas production, and in fact, again, has just approved a new oil development? Joe?
David, you talked about the fact that we go to different summits and talk about climate. What I also do, as soon as I'm sitting around, I've done this from the very first summit I attended in 2015, at the end of 2015, as I was explaining why Canada was taking a remarkably different and better position than we had previously towards the Paris Agreement back at the end of 2015, I preface my comments by saying Canada is one of the largest oil and gas producers in the world. So moving forward on climate change is really hard for us. We have a thriving fossil fuel industry in this country, in our country, at a time where the world continues to run on fossil fuels and will for a number more years. So we have every excuse in the world, and the previous Conservative government, to me, certainly used that excuse to say, oh no, Canada has too many fossil fuels, we can't do anything on leading on the environment. But what I understood and what I've always demonstrated is that the fact that we have that means it's all the more important for us to step up and show real leadership on fighting climate change. And that's exactly what we've done. We're one of the few countries in the world to move forward on a broad-based price on pollution and then manage to win 2 elections on that. So it's not a vote killer automatically. And that's a point I make to a lot of my fellow democracies as we're trying to move towards a global standard on pricing pollution. And there's lots of people out there who want to make pollution free again. Well, we're not one of them. We're going to continue to fight for more price on pollution. And, absolutely right, the federal government in Canada doesn't control oil production to the same way, but we do have, thanks to a Supreme Court case that we won recently, control over environmental emissions. So we're moving forward with an absolute cap on oil and gas emissions, and we're going to be reducing those emissions so we can get to net zero by 50. And that's not just waiting until 2049 to do it. Every 5 years, we have to have legislated check-ins on how we're doing on the track to 2050. So, yes, we are stepping up with massive investments in renewables, massive investments in cleaner technologies, because we know that the world is moving off of oil and gas, massively reducing its dependency on it. And the inflation crisis people are facing right now is a motivator for many people to say, well, how fast can we become less reliant on Russian, obviously, but also eventually Saudi and eventually Canadian oil and gas? Well, while we do that, we're investing to make sure that those amazing hard workers in the oil and gas sector in Canada are able to transfer their skills and be building renewable electricity, moving forward on hydrogen, moving forward on carbon capture and storage technology, moving forward on the kinds of solutions that not just we need in Canada, but around the world. So yes, I will stand here and say, yeah, Canada is a big oil and gas producing country. And because of that, not in spite of that, we are leading on climate change as well.
Look, I don't come to this passively or late. I'm a student of what's happening around the globe, and you have real leadership in Canada. I know it's, all of us are prone to criticism, and we're not moving fast enough, we're not pure enough, we're not, but Canada is a leader. And I don't think this, I know this. We did a memorandum of understanding just a couple of years ago in 2019 that happened at a critical time in our nation's history and had a profound impact. You had the Canadian government willing to reach out to California when we were in the middle of a war with the Trump administration on the most significant climate issue for our state, and that's tailpipe emissions. Over 50% when you look, 41% of tailpipe emissions are responsible for our CO2. CO2 is 41% of those coming out of tailpipes, but when you look at extraction, it's over 50%. He was trying to take away our waiver that was established by the Reagan administration. And Canada came calling, the Prime Minister's office called, and had our back and signed an agreement specific to those issues, which did this. And let me tell you the substance. I can only speak of the substance. Which sent a message to Ford, sent a message to GM, send a message to all of the big automobile manufacturers that we have partners, not just in the United States, but partners around the globe, and set the tone and tenor for a different conversation that ultimately allowed me, shortly after we signed the MOU, Mr. Prime Minister, to have the courage to put out the first executive order of its kind in the United States saying we're banning the sale of all gas-powered cars by 2035. That would not have happened if my mind wasn't stretched to the possibilities and the partnerships beyond our own borders. So I can speak to that, and that is substance. Bill Ford, by the way, announced shortly after we did that he's all in. He's not going to see the future. And he moved away from the Trump administration, took some of the other automobile companies a few years later to do the same. But that's the kind of substantive partnership that we seek and that we've had with Canada. And look, society becomes how we behave, and I'll just close on this. We are our behaviors. That's naive. I'm going to drive away in a car. It needs to be filled up. All of us, that's unfortunate. But we're also doing things that no other state is doing in terms of electrifying our vehicle fleet. $10 billion of the $47.1 billion is specifically in our electrification efforts. So it's right to ask the question I think you asked. It's a question I get all the time. But I also think it's right what the Prime Minister said, that he highlights what he has done and the success that he has advanced, and comparing contrast to what the vast majority of other leaders are not doing, I'm here for a reason, proud to be standing side by side with the Prime Minister of Canada on this issue.
Thanks, Aaron. Just a quick follow-up. I just wonder if we can get into some substance on today's MOU. Prime Minister, you've been in the House of Commons, in a week or whatever, and you can say, I went down to California, and as a result, this is different. Governor, same thing for you. You can say, Prime Minister came down to California, and now this is different. Can you give us a specific, substantive, something changed because of today's signing?
Well, the first thing I'll do is point out what changed because of the last time we were down, because we got many of the same questions. The Environment Minister who came down to sign this last time in 2019 got many to say, well, how is this going to actually make a difference? Well, right now we see Canadian company Lion Electric, that does conversion of school buses to being all electric and does a lot of some heavy-duty vehicle transformation. Small company outside of Saint-Jérôme, Quebec, is now present in California, directly consequence of those signings. So that signing. The agreements that we sign here are about working together and creating opportunities and follow-ups on things like protecting nature, investing in clean tech, and specifically on plastics as well in this one, where we need to keep more plastics out of our oceans and make sure we're doing a better job of recycling them. These are the specific things that this agreement will be doing.
No, and I'll just extend on that. Lion Electric's an interesting case study. Came from our partnerships in the past, as the Prime Minister said, but also Lion Electric will be a beneficiary of the over $1 billion investment that we are making in converting our school buses. Subsidies that the state of California has put in front of the California legislature. In a matter of weeks, I will sign that budget that will include those subsidies. It's just an example of the opportunities and the capacity to accelerate investments and create the economic opportunities that we all seek. Look, I think the most substantive thing oftentimes coming out of these things is the relationships, the folks you see in the front row. And the fact that folks are getting to know each other by name, exchanging not just ideas, but each other's information, and comparing, contrasting the challenges and opportunities they face every single day, and looking at best practices and sharing them. So these things have a lot more meaning and substance than I think may appear. I know a Senate can always maintain a sort of passivity on these things, but when you're practicing, both the Prime Minister and I we're pragmatists. I think these things go a long way and have tremendous meaning. So again, to all of you that came here today, we're grateful, but no one more grateful for than the Prime Minister of Canada took the time to come to California and be here to sign this memorandum of cooperation. Thank you all very, very much.